Hey, what's up? Well, back with another video. Finally put away the Halloween stuff for the most part. Still need to wash my Halloween tablecloth. But in this video, I'd like to unbox something. See how I did with TEMU. Once again, I'm just so addicted to TEMU. And one thing I'd like to start out by saying, in this video, I even put the clocks back an hour, every single one of them. If it were up to my dad, they could all be wrong. So long as he's got his Fitbit and his phone, they're right automatically. So anyway, I'd like to start out by saying that living in a bigger house is a wonderful thing because you pretty much never have to worry about reaching your fitness goals. Like, the only way that you will not achieve your goals for the most part is if you forget to wear it. You know, I mean, it's to the point where, like, if I stay up all night, like I unfortunately always have, I pretty much have my goals by the time I finally get to bed and to sleep, and I could pretty much, just put the Fitbit on the charger and wear my regular watch from then on out, or none at all if I'm staying home. Okay, so let's get on with this video. See what we got from the not so generous folks at TEMU. Well, first of all, we have what looks like a little bitty toilet for a Barbie elimination communication baby. But it's actually, what it actually is a pencil sharpener with an eraser. So you see that? You sharpen your pencil and use that little unicorn eraser. And I think they're random. And they picked the one with the moon for me. How appropriate. So it should contain the pencil shavings a little better. I'm not sure how you open it. Oh, that's how. You take that off. So you sharpen your pencils in the toilet. What do we have here? Some nice little stencils like I used to have. This brings back memories, very nostalgic for me. Nice little stencils. To use, little plastic, and they're a bit sturdier than those flimsy things that I used to have. They just have scratches. See, what is that? Oh, it's in metric. Oh my goodness. I used to like 1/4 inch. That was my favorite. See, a 1/4 inch would be, an inch is, I guess, 25 or something. So that's an inch, 25 millimeters. See, 1/4 of 25 is about 6 or so. So I guess that one is about 1/4 inch. So it's a metric circle template. See, that's what I'm saying. These people believe in metrics. That's my only issue, is they don't default to English or American now. But when I was in school, I think I still have one. One thing, if you were ever one of my teachers, that you would remember about me, if you had me anywhere from grades 7 through 12, my senior year was the last year I did that. It's a long story as to why. I used to, and I like how it's got a ruler, but unfortunately it's centimeters. Oh, dang, why? Why do they not like the American system? But this is awesome. It's basically a circle template and a ruler all in one. 18 centimeters, so let's see, 15 or 25 centimeters is about 10 inches. So half of 25 is 12 and a half. That's about 5 inches. So a little over 6 inches. That's about right. That's about the kind of ruler you need. So if I could get used to metrics, this would be great. I wish I could go back in time and give this to my teenage self for school. If you were ever my teacher, what you would remember about me, I don't know if there's anyone else on the planet who did this, but all throughout junior high and high school, I never felt like I was ever perfect enough. You know, my grades could never be high enough. I wanted straight hundreds, but was never able to accomplish that, but I did come close in junior high. I would get out a sheet of notebook paper, and rather than just freehand things, you know, like most kids, and just not care, and that's one thing that really got me bad in geometry. That's why I didn't do better. I started out making A's, but then ended up with B's. And then I was lucky to get that by the end of the year in 9th grade. And so what I would do, even just, you know, ordinary classes that had nothing to do with math, I wanted to be known as Little Miss Perfect. And I would get out a sheet of notebook paper, and to make the title of the paper centered perfectly, I would put a dot about 2 3/4 at a 5.5 inches between the margins, and then I would decide approximately how many inches long I wanted the underline of the title. You know, if it was a longer word or longer phrase, it might be 4 inches, something shorter might be 2 or 3 inches. And so I'd have this perfectly centered heading on my paper and a perfect underline. Anytime I had to underline something, I'd get out a straight edge. And when I had to number my paper from 1 to anything, I would draw these circles with the 1/4 inch diameter one all down the page, and then I would put the numbers inside those little tiny circles so that they wouldn't be confused as part of the answer. And I started out when I was younger, I would just do it freehand in 6th grade and below, but in 7th grade, I decided that I could never be perfect enough at anything. You know, anything that could be done better, I wanted to do it better, whether or not I was being graded. And when I was being graded, I wanted 100 and no less. And I would deliberately take the easiest classes in high school. I would try to take the regular class whenever possible, unless they just didn't have a regular class, so that I could get a higher grade on my report card. That's what I cared about. You know, I didn't want to make a B and have it counted as an A because it's an AP class or a college credit. No, I just wanted to see 100 on my report card. And I wanted to shine. You know, I didn't want other kids to do better than me because they were also honor students. I wanted to be with the dumbest of dumb kids, having already been redshirted, you know, so that I could feel good about myself. So anyway, you know, this brings back memories. And so I would do this, and I think college was the turning point, and something happened that really, I'll never forget. It was a really bad time in my life, you know, my first year of college, because I was trying to continue to be the same person that I had been through high school to whatever extent possible, but it just wasn't quite working out anymore, because, you know, people literally just didn't give a care about me. You know, teachers were not the same anymore. And it just wasn't the same world. You took notes for your own benefit, not to impress someone with how nice they looked. and daily grades were a thing of the past, so no one really cared, how nicely you could write the answers on a page on a pop quiz. They just cared, if you got them right on a Scantron. And so, handwriting was no longer important. Everything was computerized or Scantron. And it was just very depressing. And the worst thing of all was that my little sister was suddenly getting to the age where I remembered becoming such a perfectionist. But there was no way. It was almost like, the reasons we don't see eye to eye is because it's almost like she looked at everything I did and decided I will not do it that way. No matter what it costs her, no matter the consequences. It's almost like she wants to be the opposite of a perfectionist. She wants to actually sabotage. She wanted to sabotage herself in ways that she could get away with. And it's hard to explain what I mean by that. But like if there was something, that she wasn't being graded on, like she knew our mom expected high grades, but if she wasn't being graded on something, then she was going to do it as sloppily and crappily as she could get by with doing it, and deliberately, like, I don't know how to explain it, like humble herself and make sure the other kids knew that although she was an honor student and could play the piano like none of the teachers could even do, except maybe the music teacher, she still had flaws or faults, or you know what I'm saying? Like she wanted to let everybody know that she wasn't perfect. And it just really made both of us mad, both mom and I, because it looked like she was deliberately trying to sabotage herself, downplay her talents. She didn't like being the best at everything, so whatever she could get away with doing crappily and not get in trouble, she was going to do it, including poop in her panties when there was no reason she couldn't have gotten to a toilet. It's about the worst thing. So anyway, so I had given her one of these, or the flimsy version of this, for, I don't know if it was a birthday gift, and I wanted her to start doing like me and using one of these, and like in math class, this was always my downfall. I had to make every shape, and that's the other thing I got. I had to make every shape as perfect as it could be. A right triangle on my math homework had to look like an actual right triangle. Or, like a isosceles triangle or equilateral triangle. The triangle had to look perfect, or I wasn't finished with my homework unless it was perfect, in addition to the answers being right. And of course, like I said, that really was bad for me in geometry because I got really burnt out like that. And I was having no spare time and not getting any sleep. So, but when my sister came along, and I already see something damaged about it, but it's so cheap that I'm just gonna be okay with it. And I got this one. It's got other geometric shapes. So I gave my sister a ruler, or a template like this to circle her numbers, and I wanted her to start underlining with a ruler or straight edge beginning in 5th grade. And I wanted her to be, like me. I wanted her to be organized, and you know what I'm saying, like beginning in 5th grade. It's like, it was almost like puberty was when all this stuff came about, this OCD, as it was called. I became just extremely OCD, from a little bit OCD to extreme about everything around puberty. And it's like every year I would add to my list something else that had to be perfect by a certain standard. And it was always about school, never makeup in boys, because that was the opposite of what I wanted. And I just, every year it's like I would just come up with one more thing that I had to do a certain way. And 5th grade, or I want to say the end of 4th grade, so when I started to organize my desk in a way that had to be perfect, so to speak, at school. My homeroom desk, would have to be organized in such a way that, like, my biggest book was on the bottom with my smallest textbook on top. And it wasn't hard to do that with only 3 of them, maybe 2 or 3. And then, I started having to have my matte pencils in rainbow order from red to purple or black, and with brown on the other side of red. And I just started having to have things, just a certain way. And it sort of built, I would build on it with every year. I had to type my dividers in the days of typewriters. And then I found a way to do that on the computer. And then I just started just having all these expectations on myself that no teacher ever even told me to do. And I did it partly for attention, so that teachers would compliment me on those things, even if I wasn't making 100 in their class. And so, I just got more and more obsessive, compulsive the older I got. But my little sister came along and was the polar opposite. Like, I would even go through the effort of, like, getting on the computer and typing labels for a disc, or a CD. Like, I'd find whatever way I could to make something as perfect as possible, as perfect as humanly possible. And my sister came along, and she was like as far from that as you could get. She, the older she got, the more she rebelled against even my mom's expectations. The older she got, the more she hid poopy panties in her room. Normally, even most boys aren't doing that past age 4. So, it was like she got worse and worse and worse. She didn't want to bathe. She didn't want to do anything. She lost her class ring in Chicago, which really made us mad. Both Mom and I, and we finally were able to get it back, through a lot of emails to her teacher, because she was on a class trip. And it just really made us mad how perfection was about the last thing she cared about. There was nothing Mom or I could do to force her to care. And so, I gave her one of these, and I think I got really mad at her when I was 19 and she was 10. And there was kind of a fight, so to speak, kind of a falling out, where I wanted her to be more like me, perfectionist, and my mom was kind of backing her decision to not be, and like telling me that I was the bully and I needed to back off, and she didn't have to be like me as long as she made good grades. And so it ended with my mom cutting up one of these, a much flimsier version. And of course it didn't have all these shapes. And so 19 was like the turning point, wherein I decided it had so many bad memories. I still had one. I could have still continued that behavior. But I stopped, filling the page with circles and putting numbers in them. And I just, would draw like a number and kind of a half circle, or, like I don't know, like like one period and then like a slash or a semicircle, so that it would still, separate the number without being a perfect circle, and I could do it faster. And once I realized that the professors couldn't have possibly cared less, I didn't care either. And it was like a turning point. College was just nothing like high school. Never could be. And, there was a rift between my sister and I, that just got bigger and bigger the older she got, and was still pooping in her panties and still not caring about perfectionism. Still didn't want to be like me. In fact, it was almost like, now that I look back on it, I think she did it on purpose. Because, let's be honest, poop just doesn't fall out of your butt in high school. Because she would always conveniently have these accidents when she wasn't in school and we weren't looking at her. You know, I don't know how or when she would do this, but it was almost like, in looking back, I think she wanted to deliberately sabotage herself, you know, and not allow herself to be even normal, let alone perfect, you know, like I wanted to be. And I enjoyed standing out, you know, by caring so much about perfection and, you know, making shapes with stencils and all that. And underlining with rulers. So yeah, I spent 20 minutes talking about this package. And one last thing, a little astronaut eraser, you know? I mean, if only I could have had something like that when I was younger. But, you know, it's like I didn't want to fit in. You know, I didn't want to be average like the other kids. I wanted to be special. And, you know, perfectionism was my way of standing out. You know, in addition to saying that I was some kind of an alien from a planet where they don't get sick, then turning around and getting sick. Oh, and one last thing. A doll. I wasn't going to buy this. But when I saw those pretty green eyes, which is not very common, you know, I have a collection of Simba dolls like that I have to show. And I have a few boys. But this one comes with a cat and 2 dogs. Something like that. So I just couldn't resist. So anyway, this video is way too long, but I'm very happy with the stuff I got.